So Bitcoin, everything about Bitcoin represents everything that you would find in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and everything that we have fought for in this country for over 240 years. So the easy thing to do is just to buy Bitcoin, accumulate Bitcoin, promote Bitcoin. So inevitable in terms of being a global hyper-Bitcoinization. We're seeing, I guess you'd have to, Scott, compare it to internet adoption in the 90s. I was running an internet company in the 90s, and even after Netscape went public and you had a big surge of use of the internet, there was a period there around 1997 or so where people like Paul Krugman of the New York Times and others were questioning whether or not this internet thing was going to survive, or was it just a fad?
Fax machine.
Then we saw that hockey stick moment. That's the character of exponential growth, is that you've got that doubling effect, that factoring, that exponential growth. And so now I think we're at that hockey stick moment where you see in the next 6 to 9 months doubling of usage from 150 million to 300 million, and then pretty soon we're going to be over 1 billion, and then Bitcoin will be ubiquitous and entrenched and part of everyday life, and people won't even be thinking about it. They'll be using it, but they won't even know they're using it. Just like people use the internet and they don't really think about the protocol that underlies the internet and how it works and why it works. They just use it. Same thing with Bitcoin. It just becomes part of the fabric of our reality. Yeah. It's happening really fast, but it has a price, and that is what people focus on. And if it's not moving in any given minute of every given day in the direction people want it to move, it becomes like, oh my God, this is not happening as fast as I would. With the internet, it wasn't actually a price that was traded in terms of the where it was in the adoption cycle. I'm sure a lot of people would have loved to have the opportunity to actually buy part of the internet, which is what you can do with Bitcoin. You're actually buying something as big as the internet, as ubiquitous as the internet, but you're actually able to own a piece of it. So that's the big difference. And well, the design of the protocol invites everyone to join, and it also invites attacks. And the game theoretical aspects of it are intact, and they're working beautifully. So you want as many people to be participating as possible. You want both Russia and Ukraine buying Bitcoin. You want every country to be buying it. You want Wall Street buying it. You want Wall Street trading it. You want Wall Street creating all the derivatives they want to create on top of the Bitcoin stack. The greatest thing we have, though, is the ability to pull our keys off the exchanges. So if they want to create a multi-tiered Ponzi scheme based on a Bitcoin base layer like they do in the gold market, for example, which hasn't had good price discovery now for over 10, 15 years, we have the ability to pull the private keys off the exchange essentially and collapse any major Ponzi scheme. There will be credit cycles. Bitcoin will still be used as collateral. There's a lot of products here that are being introduced for mortgages and other types of leveraged products, and that's fine. It's pristine collateral. Michael Saylor is now, borrowing against his Bitcoin position to buy Bitcoin. So he's engaged in a leveraged attack against the dollar, a speculative attack against the US dollar, because if you can borrow money at these artificially low rates that the central banks have kept so low as part of a failed bank policy now for years, and you can buy Bitcoin, you're going to exploit this incredible arbitrage between the central bank totally mishandling policy for over 20 years now, and the presence of this pristine, perfect money Bitcoin. And so Michael Saylor sees that, and he's taking advantage of that. When I talked to Ricardo Salinas Pliego about this, he said he's 60% Bitcoin, and I'm like, well, that's a baby position. You need to get 120% Bitcoin. Everything you have, you need to put it up as collateral and go all in. He kind of laughed at that. But it's hard to argue with a guy while you're on his jet. During the Weimar days, Weimar Germany, the richest man in Germany did something very similar. He borrowed against the central bank, bought commodities, and became the richest man in Germany. I believe it's in the book, When Money Fails. We're going to see companies and other individuals follow that model. They have the white hot breath of inflation breathing down their neck, and inflation is breaking out, as we've been saying for a while, and it's not transitory, and it's entrenched. It's a cyclical turn. The bond market now is over. The 40-year bull market in bonds is finished.
Yeah.
So this is commodities are now in charge. Paper assets that have been running the show for 40 years, that period is over. The narrative of countries are going to outlaw Bitcoin to countries are going to start panic buying Bitcoin. That's the difference. So there's a few countries are still in the frame of mind that they need to outlaw or regulate Bitcoin, and particularly in the US. And this was the second worst mistake that China has ever made by getting rid of their miners as they did. It had absolutely no impact on Bitcoin. The hash rate's now already at new all-time high. They're at a disadvantage, a strategic disadvantage, having done that particular act. But this is China's curse. Despite their stupidity, they're still going to make out better than the US, which is committing financial suicide right now.
What's the world look like when Bitcoin becomes global currency, when hyper-Bitcoinization, Bitcoin standard?
Fractionalization, just like the protocol is decentralized, so too will the world and the powers of the world, the countries of the world, and the people of the world. So we're going to have, if you look at an old map of the United States from 200 years ago, there were something like 150 nations in America, of Native Americans. Yeah. And that's where we're going back to. We're going to go back to thousands of nations around the world running their micronations, but everyone will be on a Bitcoin standard. So it'll be very holistic, very organic, be able to trade with everyone, will be able to trade with each other with perfect money. We're heading to decentralization breeds more decentralization, and you want diversity, you want biodiversity. It's a lot of fun for them because they can't control it. So like the problem with being a fiat billionaire is that you have people constantly telling you, do this, you've got billions, do this, do that. And with fiat money, you do have the ability to influence politics and influence society, but with Bitcoin, you don't.
Yeah.
So it's like they can have fun again.
He said he's 60% in and he loves playing golf. That's what I got out of it. But 60% is no joke.
Well, I told him that was basically he was short.
Yeah.
He was short Bitcoin at only 60%. You got to go Michael Saylor and go 120%.
Yeah.
150%. Honduras bent the knee. But they'll be back because inflation's out of control, and the US dollar is weakening in terms of its usage around the world. Less than 60% of global trade is now US dollar. And so they just have to wait a little bit longer before Hondurans get the taste of freedom. They'll taste it though.